On my 38th birthday, I found out my husband Graham had reserved 6 passes to the Sundance Film Festival premiere week. The guests were Graham, my son, Owen, my daughter Chloe, and my sister Simone. I was not on the list after I watched them leave. I turned around, sold the condo, and booked myself a solo creative retreat in Iceland. Then the whole family had regrets. On the morning of my birthday, I worked up the nerve to ask Graham, "Remember Sundance back when we first got married? You said we'd go. Can we finally make it happen this year?" Graham was conditioning the leather strap of his vintage camera bag. His fingers paused for a second, his brow furrowed. "Come on, Elise. You're 38. You're not some film school freshman. Do you even know what Sundance is? 10 days of freezing slush, overpriced coffee, and standing in line for screenings? You really think you can handle that?" 17-year-old Owen leaned halfway down the staircase, his noise-canceling headphones still clamped over his ears, that specific smirk teenage boys wore fixed on his face. "Mom, you can't even tell a documentary from a narrative feature. What would you even do at a film festival? Make us snack boxes." He mimed arranging cheese and crackers on a tray, cracked himself up, and laughed at his own joke. 11-year-old Chloe was sunk into the couch scrolling through short video clips. She didn't even lift her eyes. On the kitchen island sat 14 lemon poppy seed muffins I had baked after crawling out of bed at 5:30 in the morning, neat rows on the tray, all cold. The date on the smart display was blinding, March 14th, my 38th birthday. No one said a word, no cake on the table, no card, not even one of those $5 greeting cards from the drugstore rack. It's not that I wanted a surprise party, I just thought someone should remember no one did. Late that night, I was tidying the living room when I saw Graham's tablet charging on the coffee table. A notification from a vacation rental platform slid onto the screen. I swiped it open. The passcode was Owen's birthday. A whole mountain lodge and Park City pool included 6 all-access festival badges. Premier section seating included check-in, was 3 days away. I scrolled down the guest names. Popped up Graham, Owen, Chloe, and Simone. I backed out, tapped in again, backed out, tapped in. My name was not there. I was holding the mug of herbal tea I had just made for him. My fingers had gone white around the handle, 38 years old. I got a gift. I finally saw exactly what I was in this family. I set the mug on his nightstand, didn't smash it. I wanted to, but I set it down. In the bathroom, Graham was humming a track from his band Hollow Reverie, a song that got played twice on a local college radio station and was never mentioned again. He was warming up for Sundance. 3 days from now, he'd take the kids and my sister and plunge headfirst into the coldest film festival on Earth. And on this reservation, I did not exist. None of this family's plans had ever included me. The doorbell rang the next evening. Graham went to answer it. His voice shot up a full octave, carrying an excitement I hadn't heard in a long time. "Simone, why didn't you tell us you were coming?" Simone's laugh flooded the living room like chilled champagne bubbles. She had this effect wherever she went. The air in the room stirred alive. Surprise. What's life without a little spontaneous madness? Owen's footsteps thundered down from the second floor so fast he nearly tumbled down the stairs. Chloe sprang up too. Her tablet hit the carpet with a slap. She didn't even look at it. The downstairs sounded like a celebration. Graham hauled out a bottle of premium whiskey from the cabinet he had been hoarding for most of the year, announcing with great ceremony that tonight called for a real celebration. That bottle only came out when Simone visited. Simone's voice cut through all the noise and landed precisely on me. "What about Elise not coming down to chat?" Graham's hand paused mid-pour. She's sulking. Got it in her head. She had to go to Sundance. I told her, "Elise, you're past that phase. Don't do this to yourself." And her reaction, stone-cold poker face, pettier than Chloe during her tween mood swings. Simone sighed. That pitying, resigned tone twisted my stomach into a knot. She's been like this since we were kids. Just can't let things go. Your family is basically a modern-day sitcom, and she can't see what's right in front of her. Insists on chasing some freezing film festival like she's 22. She paused. Her voice softened like she was pleading my case and hammering the final nail into it at the same time. But honestly, Graham, don't blame her. She's never set foot outside Philadelphia. Her whole life. Her world is small. You've all been so patient with her. A brief silence fell over the living room, like a moment of silence for me. Owen broke it. Enough of this downer talk. Simone's here. We're getting steaks at that new grill spot. I'll navigate. Graham jumped in immediately. The influencer has arrived. How can we not go for the best dry-aged ribeye in the city? Chloe shrieked along. Yes. Simone comes over and we get steak. A chaotic shuffle of coats being yanked on keys, being hunted for Owen and Graham, bickering over who would drive. Then the front door slammed shut. Then silence. I came out of the second-floor bedroom and stood at the top of the stairs. The living room was empty. The muffins still sat on the island. Dishes were piled in the sink. Simone's wine glass held half an inch of whiskey. Her lipstick print stained the rim. A family of 4 had driven off for downtown dinner. Not one person came upstairs to ask if I wanted to come. No one even asked. I sat on the couch. The dark TV screen reflected a woman, faded discount store. Sweatshirt hair yanked into a messy ponytail overdue for a salon appointment by week's hands, cracked raw from flour and dish soap. One old burn scar from the oven still visible. Standing next to Simone, I looked like a sun-bleached photograph propped next to an oil painting. She was unmarried child, free, unfettered chased sunsets from Ibiza to Kyoto. 300,000 social media followers tracked her every move she wore, designer dresses and niche French perfumes. She picked up my son from school in a luxury SUV and filmed him from the passenger seat with the caption, "My cool Aunt Simone is cooler than your entire life." Me. I married Graham, spent 16 years moving between the oven and the sink, raised a son, and had a daughter, full-time unpaid house manager and family baker. My online shop brought in $10,000 to $12,000 a month, but in this house that was just mom's little hobby. I looked up at the family photo mounted above the fireplace, 5 people beaming wide. Even the golden retriever made it into the frame. Graham in the center, Owen and Chloe on either side. Simone draped elegantly over his shoulder. That was last Christmas. I was in the emergency room on an IV drip with food poisoning. Simone took everyone out to the botanical gardens for a family portrait session. Graham had the photo framed and hung above the fireplace. When he told me about it, his tone was pure self. Assurance, like he'd made the decision for my own good. Simone was spending the holidays alone. I couldn't let her be lonely. "I took care of your sister because I love you." Then he stepped back to admire his work. Saw my silence, his face darkened. "She's your sister. You're jealous of that. You two have been at odds since you were kids. You're too old for this toxic nonsense. Family supports family." I didn't argue. That family photo without me hung in the most prominent spot in the living room for a year, on the most valuable wall in the condo. This condo I bought outright before marriage, with the inheritance my mother left me. The deed has only ever had my name on it. 16 years. Graham lived here like a rent-free tenant. The utilities were paid by my online shop orders. I stared at Simone's radiant smile in that photo, and suddenly, the absurdity of it all crashed down on me. A person who lived in this house didn't even qualify to be in the family portrait. You can erase me from a whole festival's worth of passes, you can bury me alive in this kitchen for 16 years, and you still expect me to stand at the stove forever waiting to heat up leftovers when you're done having fun. That night, I pulled my passport and the bank safety deposit key from the drawer in Graham's study, locked them in the bottom of my own makeup case. Then I lay back down in bed. I don't know what time Graham came home. I only remember him lifting the covers, reeking of grilled meat and whiskey. He muttered one thing: "You should hit the gym, your stomach's getting loose." Simone's 36, and she still has abs. I didn't move. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. Wave after wave, I remembered 16 years ago, after Simone rejected him. He turned around and got down on one knee outside a pizza joint on South Street. "Elise, you're the kind of woman who makes a man feel grounded. I need you. I'd be lost without you." He said artists drift. Life needs an anchor. I was the anchor. I was 22. I had just opened my first baking stall using my mother's recipes. I was full of fire. I thought anything was possible. I thought being needed was the same as being loved. I thought being a ship's anchor was romantic. It took me 16 years to understand what those words really meant. An anchor stays on the ocean floor. An anchor goes nowhere. An anchor's purpose is to be corroded by salt water and rusted by sediment, so the people on the ship can chase the wind and waves. And on that ship sat Graham, Owen, and Chloe and Simone forever, in the best seat, not me. I clenched my jaw, gripped the blanket so hard my nails bit through the duvet into my palms. Tears slid from the corners of my eyes into my ears. I stayed completely still until they went cold. Graham's phone, abandoned on his nightstand, buzzed 3 times in a row. They had already left for Sundance. I picked up the phone, a screen cracked at the corner. A phone he still refused to replace, and typed in the passcode. Simone's birthday ID, overheard it from Owen. Simone's message sat in the family group chat, the one named Mountain Crew, the one I was never added to. Graham: "Remind Elise to pack everyone's passports. She's always forgetting things. Don't let her screw this up at check-in, lol." At the same moment, a calendar alert hit my inbox. Lodge check-in, confirmed 7:42, Summit Drive, Park City, 3-bedroom chalet, with hot tub, paid in full, festival badge redemption codes, 6 sets. I put the phone back on the nightstand exactly where ID found it. 6 passes, 6 codes, none of them were mine. Graham came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, toweling off his hair, scrolling his phone. His tone was casual, like he was telling me what we were having for dinner. I've got a panel slot next week on a side stage at Sundance. Pack my stuff tonight. Don't forget my vintage leather jacket, and the badge confirmation email needs to be printed. This is serious. Don't screw it up. He lay down with his back to me, still talking pack. Owen and Chloe's bags too. Let them see something. The installations, the premiere screenings, that's what expands your horizons. I won't let my kids end up like you. I barely left the city limits. The words came out of me before I could stop them. What about me? Silence. Graham rolled over. His breathing slowed into a light snore, almost immediately crushing that last pathetic flicker of hope he'd been holding. I almost laughed out loud. Elise Harper, you're 38 years old. Your online shop brings in $10,000 to $12,000 a month. You've got 53 open orders staring at you, wedding cakes, corporate dessert tables. You've been feeding a family of 4 plus a band that hasn't recorded half a sellable album. And you're lying here asking, what about me? How did you let your life become this? 6 in the morning, the coffee machine hadn't even started. Owen's alarm went off first. Chloe was shouting from downstairs that she couldn't find her limited edition sneakers. Graham shoved the bedroom door open, kicked the bed frame with his foot. Go, make some pancakes. Chloe's got a match. Don't send her out on an empty stomach. I got up in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back at me had red-rimmed eyes, but they were dry. The next 2 days, I moved like a programmed machine. I dragged out everyone's luggage, packed, sorted, labeled, Graham's vintage leather jacket on top, badge confirmation email printed in triplicate, tucked into a waterproof document pouch. They were so excited, they nearly blew the roof off. On departure morning, Owen was at the breakfast table by 6:30, unheard of, shoving a breakfast wrap into his mouth while showing off the festival outfits he'd been researching all week. Mom, you know, Simone met a famous director at Sundance last year, the real one. No joke, she promised, she'd introduce us this year. He chewed his wrap, never once. Looked at me, someone like you wouldn't get it. Simone says, Sundance is a whole vibe. It's not your weekend wholesale run. Graham poured oat milk into his coffee, walked over like he hadn't heard a word his son just said. He patted my shoulder casually. Elise, load that last snack box into the car. Chloe gets carsick. Make sure you pack. Never mind. Simone already put gluten-free stuff in her trunk. Yours won't work. I looked at him, the corner of my mouth tugged. I didn't say anything. I drove the old minivan and dropped them at the airport terminal. Simone was already there, visible from a distance. She wore a designer trench coat, luxury sunglasses, leaning against her silver luxury SUV phone, held up filming when she spotted us. She pulled off her sunglasses and waved. Every face in my car lit up. Owen sprinted ahead, Chloe right behind him. Graham smiled so wide, the crows. Feet bunched at his eyes. He stepped twice as light as normal. Simone beamed and hugged them. Then she clapped her hands like she was inspecting the troops. Everyone, check your badge codes if you lose them. I can't save you. VIP doesn't mess around. Lost is lost. 3 obedient family members dug through their bags and phones. I checked everything a dozen times at home. But when Simone gave an order, they snapped to attention like trained recruits. It should have gone perfectly, of course. Something went wrong. Owen's badge redemption code gone. Mom, you packed my bag. You said everything was in there. Where's the code? Owen's voice cracked with panic. A 17-year-old boy's shrill voice exploded through the terminal. Travelers dragging suitcases turned to look. I froze. I had personally put that waterproof pouch into the inner pocket of his backpack, right next to his allergy meds and power bank. There was no way I got it wrong. I didn't even have time to open my mouth before Graham stormed toward me, face twisted with rage. He grabbed my arm. The force made me stumble. I knew it. I knew you'd been too quiet these past 2 days. You were waiting for this. What the hell is wrong with you? You can't stand seeing us happy. You did this on purpose. You wanted to ruin this trip. He was practically roaring. Spittle hit my face. A woman dragging a suitcase nearby gasped and covered her mouth. People in the terminal were staring. A uniformed security officer was walking toward us fast. Simone rushed forward and grabbed Graham's arm, voice low. Graham, calm down. Security's coming. Just think. Maybe it fell out in the car. We can call a ride back to get it. There's still time. That's when Chloe, who had been standing off to the side, silent this whole time, started crying. Her voice came out thin as a mosquito. I'm sorry it was me this morning. Owen's backpack looked too full. I tried to take some stuff out. I think I dropped the pouch on the floor. Every face turned toward her. Chloe was sobbing in hiccups. I stared hard at Graham's face. Not a trace of guilt, not a single flicker. This is your fault. He lowered his voice, but still snarled at me like a furious dog. If you hadn't shoved all that crap motion sickness pills and snacks into his bag, would Chloe have gone digging? Spare us the fake caring act. You turned everything into a pile of... Owen's face went pale. He snatched the backpack out of Chloe's hands. God, Mom, you always do this. You can't be happy unless you ruin everything. His jaw was tight. He wasn't even looking at the actual culprit. The knife of his glare was aimed straight at me. Right then, Simone held up her phone, found it. Chloe, is this the pouch? It was on the ground in front of your garage. I caught it in my departure video, look. She turned the screen toward us. The footage showed the gray-blue waterproof pouch lying blatantly in the middle of the driveway. No one said sorry. Not one person. Graham grabbed the phone, glanced at it. The rage on his face snapped instantly to urgency. The order he spat at me came out on reflex. What are you standing there for? Drive back right now. He cut himself off. They had to board. They had to get through security. There was no time to wait for me to go back and get it, and if I turned around and drove back to the city, now the 5 people in Simone's SUV would be down a driver. I couldn't leave. I had to stay, make sure they got safely on that plane, then drive back and clean up the mess myself. Graham's eyes flicked back and forth. He made his choice fast. Forget it. We're going straight to security. Simone, email me that video. I'll print it out at the airport. Should still work. Then he turned to me, zero warmth in his eyes. Go home overnight. That pouch to the Park Ridge Chalet. The security officer had reached us, hand resting on his radio. Sir, we've had a report of a physical altercation at... It's fine. I heard my own voice steady like it belonged to someone else. He was just stressed. A family disagreement, we're okay. The officer looked at Graham, then at the reddening mark on my arm. He hesitated a few seconds. Graham forced a smile and spread his hands wide in a gesture of harmlessness. The officer nodded, once stepped back. That was the last time I instinctively cleaned up his mess. I didn't know it then. Graham grabbed Owen's arm and headed for the security line without looking back. Owen never once glanced over his shoulder at the mother his father had just publicly humiliated. Simone adjusted her trench coat. She didn't stop walking as she passed me, just tilted her head and tossed out one line. Hey, sis, ice your face. When you get home, try not to mess up the small stuff next time. We're all doing our best. Chloe shrank against Simone's side. She looked back at me. Her lips moved like she wanted to say something. Simone's hand settled gently on her shoulder. A soft nudge turned her forward. They left 5 people, passed through the security checkpoint, disappeared around the corner. I stood there, the spot on my left arm where Graham had grabbed me still throbbed. The terminal was full of people. No one noticed a middle-aged woman in a faded hoodie leaning against a pillar, her eyes dry. The roar in my ears faded, my breathing slowed, and then my mind went perfectly clear. It was a strange feeling, like it'd been suffocating in an airtight room for 16 years, and suddenly all 4 walls collapsed. Wind rushed in. Turns out, when your heart finally dies, it doesn't hurt. It feels like relief. I turned and walked back to the parking garage, got into the driver's seat of the minivan, turned the engine on, cranked the heat to max. Then I pulled out my phone, opened my contacts, found the number for a real estate agent in town, famous for getting deals done fast and quiet. I dialed. Hey, it's Elise, 1420, Elm Street, 3-bed, 2-bath plus loft. I want to list it as fast as possible. Cash buyers preferred? Yeah, I know the market's soft. I'll knock off 10 points. Yeah, I said as fast as possible. The voice on the other end said something. I looked out at the gray winter sky beyond the parking garage. The corner of my mouth lifted. That bruise on my arm was still swelling, but my smile came without resistance. No, I don't need to discuss it with my husband. It's my premarital property. The deed is 100% in my name. Yes, follow standard process. I only have one condition: as fast as possible. The afternoon cold of Philadelphia was relentless, the gray sky pressing down on Elm Street like a lid. I parked the minivan in the driveway. The brick row house stood silent, its windows dark and empty like a shell whose occupant had long since died. This was the house my mother had bought with the savings from her 30 years of teaching the house. She had left to me with a single handwritten note. Elise, never let a man tell you where to sleep. Own your ground. I had let Graham live here rent-free for 16 years. I had let his band practice in the basement until the neighbors called the police. I had let his children trample the garden my mother had planted. I walked into the kitchen. The 14 lemon poppy seed muffins still sat on the marble island, cold, dry, and slightly shrunken. I picked up the tray, walked to the trash can, and tipped them inside. They fell with a series of soft, hollow thuds against the plastic liner. I need the locks changed by 5 today, I said when the real estate agent answered on the second ring, and I want the packing crew here at 7 tomorrow morning. Elise? Are you sure? Her voice was cautious, carrying the professional hesitation of a woman who had known my family for a decade. The market is soft right now. If we wait until spring, we could get at least 90,000 more. I don't have 90 days. I said, my voice flat, calm, and completely dry. I have 5. The cash buyer you mentioned, the corporate relocation firm, are they still offering 530,000? They are, she sighed, but they want a 15-day close, and they want the house delivered empty. They'll have it empty by tomorrow night. I said, send the papers to my digital signature. I'll sign them within the hour. For the next 4 hours, I worked with the quiet mechanical precision of a baker. I didn't pack the furniture. I didn't pack the televisions, the sound system Graham had bought with my credit card, or the framed family portrait without me that hung above the fireplace. I left those exactly where they were, a gallery of thieves in an empty palace. I packed only my mother's handwritten recipe books, the vintage copper mixing bowl she had imported from France, and my professional baking oven, the heavy, commercial-grade deck oven I had bought with my first 3 months of online earnings. I packed my clothes into 2 small suitcases. While I was tape-sealing the boxes, my phone on the kitchen island buzzed. It was an automated notification from my bank alert. The joint checking account ending in number 7731 has been closed. As per your request, the balance of $13,600 has been transferred to your private account. Another notification followed immediately. Alert: the secondary credit cards issued to Graham, Owen, and Chloe have been deactivated. Status: permanent closure. I looked at the notifications, my thumb lightly tracing the glass screen for 16 years. Graham's band expenses. The custom guitar picks the gas for the tour van that never left the state. The high-end vintage jackets he wore to look like a rock star had been drawn directly from that joint account. Owen's limited edition sneakers and Chloe's trending skincare sets had been funded by the secondary cards I paid off every month with my oven's heat. They thought the money came from the sky. They thought the house was a natural resource that would never run dry. Let's see how much you love the mountains, Graham, I whispered to the quiet kitchen. At the Park City Chalet, the frigid mountain air smelled of pine and expensive fireplace logs. Graham sat on a leather lounge chair by the hot tub, a glass of craft beer in his hand, his eyes fixed on his phone screen. Owen was in the hot tub filming Chloe, doing a dance on the deck, while Simone stood by the outdoor kitchen, her phone mounted on a ring light as she talked to her followers. The vibes are absolutely immaculate today, guys. Simone cooed into the camera, her face bright with a professional, glowing happiness. Sundance Day 1 is about to begin. We're just fueling up on some local organic smoothies before we head to the premiere lounge. Hey, Dad, Owen called out, splashing water over the edge of the hot tub. Are we going to that sushi place Simone recommended tonight, the one with the $100 omakase? Of course, Graham smiled, his chest rising with a sudden arrogant pride. Only the best for the crew. I'll book the table right now. He opened his phone, clicked on his reservation app, and entered his primary credit card. The secondary card linked to my account, a red notification popped up on the screen. Transaction declined. Please contact your card issuer, code 04 card deactivated. Graham's brow furrowed. That's weird, he muttered. The card's acting up. Must be a system glitch. He pulled out his wallet, took out his backup card, the joint checking debit card, and entered the details. Transaction declined, insufficient funds. What? Graham shot up from his lounge chair, his face turning an ugly blotched red under his tan. Insufficient funds. That's impossible. Elise just deposited the online earnings last week. He frantically dialed my number. We're sorry. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Please check the number and try again. No, Graham whispered, his hand trembling as he stared at the screen. No, this can't be right. Her phone. Why is her phone disconnected? Graham. Simone walked over her ring light, still glowing, her eyebrows raised in irritation. Is the table booked? The followers are asking where we're having dinner. The cards are declined. Simone. Graham said, his voice dropping into a coarse, rattling whisper. Both of them. I can't even pay the rental deposit for the shuttle. What do you mean? Declined. Owen climbed out of the hot tub, his face pale, his headphones still wedged in his ears. Dad, we're going to the premiere lounge. You said we had $300 of spending credit on our badges. The badges are linked to the card. Owen. Graham muttered, his face completely devoid of color. If the card is deactivated, the badges are useless. Elise. Graham roared into the quiet mountain air, his hands clenching into fists as he stared at the dark screen of his phone. What the hell did you do? Behind him, Chloe stared at her own phone, her lips trembling as she saw the text message I had sent her before, deactivating my number. Chloe, the sneakers you wanted are in the garage. The condo is sold. Take care of yourself. On Monday morning, the rain finally came to Philadelphia, washing over the brick row house in long, heavy sheets. I stood in the empty living room, my 2 suitcases beside the door. The commercial packing crew had been efficient. They had cleared out every single box of my recipes, my copper bowls, and my deck oven in less than 4 hours. The only things remaining in the house were the heavy, ungrateful families. Old junk Graham's vintage guitar cases that were missing half their strings, Owen's dirty cleats, and the giant framed family portrait without me that still hung above the fireplace. The wire transfer has cleared, Elise, the real estate agent said, walking into the room with a legal folder. $530,000 is officially in your private savings account. Thank you, I said, looking at the empty marble island where the muffins had once sat. The cash buyer has already dispatched their private security team, she added, looking at the legal notice she was about to tape to the front door under the terms of the fast close. The old residents have 48 hours from today to vacate the property. Since they aren't here, the security team will change the smart locks and store their remaining personal belongings in the garage. Let them store them, I said, my voice smooth and calm as glass. I don't care where they sleep. I walked to the front door, my boots clicking softly against the hardwood floor. I took one last look at the empty gray walls, the dark TV screen, and the frame above the fireplace. I felt no sadness. I felt no regret. The 16 years of my life I had spent as an anchor, letting them corrode my health, my youth, and my talent, while they sailed on my money, were finally over. I had cut the chain, and the ship was about to drift into the rocks. I opened my umbrella, stepped out into the cold rain, and climbed into the driver's seat of the minivan as the car pulled away from Elm Street. I looked in the rearview mirror. The brick row house was already disappearing in the gray mist of the autumn storm, a silent tomb of a family that had never existed. The flight back from Salt Lake City was a quiet, suffocating nightmare for the mountain crew. Without my credit cards, they had been forced to spend the last 4 days of the festival eating cheap, dry sandwiches from a local convenience store, their VIP badges useless ornamentations against their wrists. Simone had been forced to pay for their plane tickets back to Philadelphia using her own credit card, a move she had made with a thin, brittle smile that had completely ruined her cool girl persona. I can't believe we had to fly, Coach Owen muttered as they stepped out of the airport terminal, his eyes bloodshot, his custom clothes smelling of sweat and stale beer. My back hurts. The seat didn't even recline. Shut up. Owen Graham snapped, his face pale and sunken from 96 hours of sleeplessness. We're going home. I'll deal with your mother. She's probably waiting at home throwing a tantrum because she wanted us to beg. She's gone too far this time. Graham, Simone said, her voice sharp and nasal, her designer trench coat looking wrinkled and cheap. After 4 days in the mountains, you've been too patient with her. A wife who freezes her own family's credit cards during a festival, she's mentally unstable. You should have her committed. I will. Graham growled, his knuckles white as he gripped his duffel bag. They took a ride back to Elm Street. The car pulled up to the curb at 4:30 in the afternoon. The driveway was empty. My minivan was gone, but what made Graham's heart stop was the massive corporate vehicle parked near the garage and the 2 tall men in dark security uniforms standing near the front door. What? What is this? Graham muttered, his steps slowing as he walked up the concrete path. The front door was covered by a large white legal notice, stamped with the red seal of the county real estate registry notice of foreclosure and transfer of title. Property 1420 Elm Street has been legally sold and transferred to a commercial relocation firm. All former occupants are ordered to vacate the premises immediately. Personal property has been stored in the secondary garage. No, Owen whispered, his face turning an ugly, blotched white. No, this is a joke. Mom opened the door. He ran to the door, his hands clawing at the brass doorknob, but the old lock had been replaced by a sleek digital smart lock that flashed a cold blue light when he touched it. Access denied, verification failed. Mr. Harper, one of the security guards said, stepping forward, his posture rigid and commanding, the property is no longer under your name. You have 15 minutes to collect your personal belongings from the garage before we secure the perimeter. My name is on the mailbox, Graham roared, his face contorted in a desperate, wild fury as he tried to push past the guard. I live here. This is my house. You can't lock me out. The deed is 100% under the name of Elise Vance, sir. The guard said, his voice flat and entirely devoid of respect, and she signed the transfer of title 48 hours ago. You are officially trespassing. Simone, please, Graham sobbed, his head pressing against the window of her luxury SUV. Just let us stay in your apartment for a week, just until the lawyers can contest the sale. Elise must have been mentally unstable when she signed it. We can prove she was coerced. My apartment is a 1-bedroom loft, Graham, Simone said, her voice cool, sharp, and completely dry. She didn't look at him. She was busy scrolling through her social media feed, deleting the comments from her followers who were asking why her immaculate mountain vacation had ended with a photo of her luggage piled on a muddy lawn, and my lease explicitly prohibits long-term guests. It's bad for my aesthetic. Simone Owen screamed from the back seat, his voice cracking. "We're your family. You promised you'd take care of us. You said you'd buy me the new sneakers." I said I'd introduce you to a director. Owen Simone corrected him, her tone dropping into a chilling administrative quiet. "I didn't say I'd pay your tuition. Your father is a grown man. If he lived rent-free in his wife's house for 16 years and didn't even bother to save $50 for an emergency, that is his problem, not mine." She opened the passenger door. "Get out, Graham," she said. What? Graham stared at her, his lips trembling. The parking fee for the airport was $90. Simone said, her eyes narrow behind her luxury sunglasses, and the ride back was $70. "I've already sent the payment request to your email. Please clear it by tonight." The heavy door of the SUV slammed shut as the silver car drove away, its tires kicking up dirty water from the long gray Saint. Graham fell onto his knees on the concrete, his hands clutching his wrinkled leather jacket, the one I had carefully packed for him, which was now covered in mud and ash from the driveway. He had wanted a cool aunt to raise his kids. He had wanted a woman who was unchained, who chased sunsets and looked like an oil painting. And now he was sitting on a cold curb, his children crying beside him with nothing but a bag of cheap gluten-free snacks and a broken guitar case to his name. The morning in Seattle was fresh, the smell of damp cedar and wood smoke carrying through the quiet residential streets of the Capitol Hill neighborhood. I stood by the grand glass windows of the Laurel Hearth, my new high-end bakery and dessert boutique. The air inside was warm, smelling of rising yeast, fresh butter, and the sweet dark cocoa I imported from Belgium. It had been 2 years. For 24 months, I had lived in this city under my own terms with the $530,000 cash from the condo sale and my online earnings. I had purchased a beautiful, historic brick building, transforming it into a sanctuary of taste that had officially become the most popular bakery in the state. My name, Elise Vance, was now written in elegant, gold-rimmed lettering on the menu. "Elise, the first batch of sourdough is out, my head baker." Sarah smiled, sliding a basket of golden steaming bread onto the counter, "and the wedding cake for the Sterling Group's anniversary has been delivered." "Thank you, Sarah." I smiled, a warm, genuine feeling of accomplishment rising in my chest. My phone resting on the wooden counter buzzed. It was an email from my former neighbor in Philadelphia, Sean Elise. "I thought you should know Graham's band Hollow Reverie dissolved last year after they couldn't afford the rental fees for their practice space. He's currently working as a night shift clerk at a convenience store near the highway. He's living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment in South Philly." Owen dropped out of community college last month because the tuition payments didn't go through. He's working as a delivery driver for a local pizza shop. And your sister Simone, she was dropped by her primary sponsor last month after her follower count plummeted. She's currently trying to sell her SUV to pay off her outstanding credit card debts. They tried to find you. Elise Graham's lawyers called the real estate agent 3 times, but the sale was completely legal and your digital footprint is entirely sealed. Be happy. Sean out. I looked at the email for a long time. The names Graham, Owen, and Simone felt like words written in the sand, washed away by the heavy rain of my departure. I didn't feel anger, and I didn't feel joy. The 16 years of my life I had spent as an anchor had turned into a scar, tough, pale, and completely numb to the touch. Elise Julian, the head of the local business association, and a man who had been my constant supporter for the past year, walked in carrying a large bouquet of fresh lavender. He smiled warmly as he saw me. "The city council just approved our grant for the new culinary school division. We're going to be the lead mentors." "That's wonderful, Julian." I smiled, taking the flowers from him. Their sweet, clean scent filled the warm kitchen, smelling of fresh earth and the quiet promise of a new dawn. "Let's get started." The grand opening of the Seattle Culinary Academy was held at the newly redeveloped Waterfront Plaza, a spectacular glass-domed building that stood near the Puget Sound. The hall was filled with the city's most prominent civic leaders, journalists, and culinary representatives. I stood by the podium wearing a tailored ivory silk dress, my hair styled in a classic professional low bun. Beside me stood Julian and the dean of the academy, their faces bright with respect. "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice smooth and clear, projecting through the silent hall. My mother believed that the only true value of talent is the freedom it buys to do what is right today. The Laurel Foundation is proud to announce a $50,000 annual scholarship fund for young women who want to start their own businesses. The crowd erupted into a thunderous standing ovation as the press conference concluded. I walked down the grand steps of the podium surrounded by my private security guards. "Mom," a voice called out from the back of the hall. It was Owen. He had managed to push through the crowd, his clothes wrinkled, his face pale and sunken. He looked disheveled, his hands shaking as he clutched a small, dirty paper bag, the bag of cheap, homemade granola I used to make for him when he was a kid. "Mom, please," he gasped, falling to his knees before me on the polished floor. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. I was blinded by Simone. She won't even help me pay my rent. Dad is living in a cheap rental. We have nothing left. Mom, nothing but our memories of you." I stopped 5 feet away. I looked at his worn jacket, his bloodshot eyes, and his pale, shaking hands. I felt no anger, no hatred, and no pain. He was just a minor glitch in a system I had already repaired. "The recipes I made for you, Owen," I said, my voice smooth and calm as glass, "were made by a mother who believed her family loved her, but the woman you wrote those messages to died the day she boarded that plane to Utah." I turned, placing my hand on Julian's arm. "Let's go, Julian," I said. "The presentation is about to begin." "Of course, Miss Vance," he smiled, guiding me toward the exit as the grand glass doors opened for me. The winter wind of Seattle blew through my hair, cold, fresh, and clean. I looked at the bright, open sky, my heart full of a quiet, unshakable joy. I was Elise Vance. I was the writer of my own destiny, and my story was finally beautifully complete.